This may go without saying, but as long as there have been humans, there has been facial hair. For men in particular, the history of facial hair is a long and surprisingly storied one. It's the ancient Egyptians who are often credited with being the first to try to bring some refinement to beards, which had, up to that point, usually been more of a matted mess, even haggardly trimmed with clamshells by some previous ancient societies. The ancient Egyptians began treating well-maintained beards as a status symbol, shaping and styling them, sometimes braiding, perfuming, or even dusting them with flakes of gold. In ancient Greece, beards were seen as a sign of virility and wisdom, so much so that Spartans would even shave off portions of a man's beard as punishment for cowardice. In Europe, during the Middle Ages, long beards had cultural significance. Members of the ruling class were often required to have a beard. Beards were seen as a sign of a knight's honor, and daring to touch another man's beard could lead to a duel. Likewise, beards were seen as the defining feature of a man during the Renaissance era, and this would mostly continue throughout the Victorian era into the 20th century, though with occasional periods where a well-groomed mustache, sans beard, was more in fashion, such as during World War I when it was discovered that mustaches fit better under a gas mask. But that's beards and mustaches. What of their more rowdy cousin, facial scruff, otherwise known as stubble? For a long time, especially in the modern era, facial stubble had a fairly unsavory connotation, usually associated with men of low class or criminal backgrounds. In movies, stubble was typically reserved for hoodlums, pirates, or drunks. But this started to change in the late 20th century, particularly during the 80s. This is typically credited to it being the facial hair of choice of several sex symbols of the time, such as pop star George Michael, and perhaps even more importantly, an actor whose facial stubble while playing a popular TV character became so iconic, it even inspired its own razor. Yes, in the spring of 1986, the Wall Clipper Corporation of Illinois sought to exploit the popularity of this character, creating an electrical razor that promised to allow its users to replicate the sexy 5 o'clock shadow appearance of the actor. It was actually known as the Stubble device, but this was the second choice of the company, who had settled on the name only after scrapping the first name they came up with out of fear of potential copyright infringement lawsuits from the producers of the TV show in question. That scrapped original name was the Miami device. The show was Miami Vice. And the scruffy character the Wall Corporation was betting on every man in America wanting to look like was Detective Sonny Crockett, as played by Don Johnson. By the time another actor would take over the same role 20 years later, facial stubble on men was more commonly accepted as sexy, thanks in large part to Don Johnson's trailblazing role in popularizing the look. In fact, one can't help but wonder, when a recently crowned movie star from Ireland was under consideration for the role, if one of the requirements given him was, can you look good with stubble? Thankfully, most would agree that for Colin Farrell, the answer was a resounding yes. The year is 2006, and Universal Pictures are ready to adapt a classic, groundbreaking 80s cop show with its original creators, and in the process, hopefully launch the next big action crime franchise with Miami Vice. 10, Welcome once again to Failure to Franchise, the show dedicated to some of Hollywood's most infamous mistakes, missteps, and misfires. This is Trev.
Party in the city where the heat is on, all night on the beach till the break of dawn. Welcome to Miami. Bienvenidos a Miami.
What year is that song from?
That's got to be like right around Bad Boys 1 and 2, so, I mean, probably 2003, right?
So they really missed the boat.
Were you doing a boat pun, or were you...
Oh, no. I'm not that clever.
Okay, no, we know that. I just made sure. Okay.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying. Look, Chris, we'll get into it in a moment. This is our third episode in our summer sweeps, looking at movies based on, TV shows. But before we get to it, I know this is, if you can just indulge me for a second, I know this is like out of character. We don't try to do this all the time. We try to get right to the point. But I want to just give the audience a little peek behind the, how the sausage is made just for a second for a very particular reason. And that is, they might not know this. Obviously, they wouldn't know this. But our last episode, The Mod Squad, remember that movie? No, you don't. Of course, you already forgot it. But that last episode, we recorded that one early. and that was because you were going on a very important trip. We had to take a break from recording so you could go to Tokyo, Japan. Mm-hmm. And I just bring it up because you got engaged in Tokyo, and I wanted to make sure. Congratulations, my friend.
Thank you. That means a lot. I didn't think you'd bring that up, so no, that's cool. Yeah, I shared it with you that a few months ago that was the plan, and it went off without a hitch. It was great. It was trip of a lifetime. Tokyo's, you know what? They just know how to live there.
Yeah, you were giving me updates of the trip beyond the engagement, and everything looked awesome. So
yeah, it was great, and yes, we're very happy. If she didn't say yes, many concubines in Japan, so it would have been fine.
I wanted to bring it up because I've often mentioned how I watch most of these movies with my fiance, and now you have a fiance, and it's just so if any listeners think the two guys who host a dumb podcast about failed movie franchises can't have fiancés, you are wrong. And then Chris, one last thing, also tied into that a little bit, right? And just one more peek behind the curtain because I have a concern. I want to share with you.
Okay.
Now, recently there was a movie released called The Fall Guy. And The Fall Guy came out and did pretty poorly at the box office. And I was interested in seeing the movie, but in a group thread in a text thread we were in, I mentioned that maybe I just won't watch it because maybe I'll just wait for us to do a Failure franchise episode. And you responded, I saw the movie, it's not trying to set up a franchise. I thought this was very strange because here we are in the middle of summer sweeps when we know we're looking at movies based on TV shows. You'd think by this point you'd know better. And even in fact, at the same time, there's plenty of stories online with Ryan Gosling and David Leitch both talking about how not only do they want to do a sequel, but they've already started to write it. So I was just very shocked that you thought that just because it didn't end in a cliffhanger, there was no franchise, in a potential franchise in the works. So I guess I'm asking you, Chris, should I be worried? Do I need to find a new co-host for this? Have you lost your failed franchise mojo? What's going on here?
You are becoming more cynical by the day, so I think you just think everything's going to fail, so you're always adding to the list. But I also half said that because I just wanted you to go see it, so I could talk about, it being a really fun time. But I am surprised by that. I don't follow... I guess I didn't follow a ton of the lead up to that movie, so I didn't know that they were talking about that because I watched the movie, and it's very much a singular story. And
did you even know it was based on a TV show? Because it's not like it's a super that's again, we talked about TV shows that hold on in the public consciousness and those that don't. And I think The Fall Guy kind of falls into that later category. Did you know that was based on a TV show at all? Or
I only knew because they said it at some point. Yeah. But I had zero frame of reference for that show. I don't. We're going to talk about Miami Vice soon, and it's a show that I'm not super familiar with, but I at least know it from the cultural zeitgeist. Right. It's incredibly iconic, but The Fall Guy is a total blip. I have no idea.
Yeah, I haven't seen the movie yet because I don't know. I still haven't decided if I'm going to wait or not. But even just from the trailer, it didn't seem, other than the fact of it being about a stuntman, it seemed like it wasn't exactly the premise of the TV show. And I don't know if that's where the movie ends or whatever. But yeah, I guess we'll talk about that when we do the Fall Guy episode, which will be coming sometime soon.
2033, we'll do it. Yeah.
All right. Well, I just wanted to get those two things out of the way. But for the most part, I really wanted to say congratulations on the engagement.
No, thank you, buddy. That means a lot. Means a lot.
All right. Well, okay. Let's now get to the business at hand. As you said, we're smack dab in the middle now of summer sweeps. So we did the Avengers and we did the Mod Squad. I think it's safe to say we loved them both. But this time we got a movie. Unlike those two, I'd say a movie that's a little bit more well known and certainly from a more well known regarded filmmaker. You already mentioned the title. On this episode, we are looking at 2006's Miami Vice. So, Chris, why don't you tell us a little bit about 2006's Miami Vice?
For sure. It is directed by Michael Mann. Heard of him? He's
Ferrari's own Michael Mann. What is that? That was my only frame of reference.
For people that are not in the know or live under a rock, he directed Heat, Ali, The Last of the Mohicans, Collateral, which I'm definitely going to talk about, or we're going to talk about probably a lot in this episode.
Yeah.
It is written by Michael Mann and Anthony Yerkovich. Anthony Yerkovich actually created Miami Vice. And this is the first time I learned about this while doing the research for the pod, by the way. Michael Mann was a producer on Miami Vice from the beginning. I had no idea.
Yeah.
Very cool, and definitely something that we're going to talk about, and I was happy to see that. But the TV show ran for 5 seasons from 84 to 89, and the budget of the film is $136 million, which is a lot in 2006. Domestically, it made $63 million, and worldwide, 163. So not good. This was not good. And also, when it first came out, very, very mixed reviews. So
that's putting it lightly, my friend. Like, I think, yeah.
Yeah, and I think, to set the stage, at the time in 2006, this was considered a financial bomb, but also, yeah, like you're alluding to, a critical bomb as well.
Yeah, I think we'll explain this more later, and this is not getting into our thoughts on the movie, which we still don't know each other's thoughts on the movie, but I think it's safe to say that beyond it, this isn't like a movie that was like necessarily reviled as much as it was a movie that confounded people when it came out. I think that's safe to say. Because like I said, this is actually very interesting in that it's the first one we've done like this, but I think it's just a very rare thing in general that the people who are making the movie are the same people who did the TV show. And so I think a lot of people went to see the movie expecting the TV show. And I know as we're gonna in a moment here, we're gonna talk about the show and then we're gonna talk about the movie. It's safe to say, even though it's based on the TV show, even though it's the same characters, it's the same creators, this is not a movie of the TV show. And I think people were just flummoxed by that when the movie came out. So that added to the general poor perception of the time. And we'll talk about how, that perception has evolved over time. But yeah, so no, this was looked at as a pretty big folly at the time for a lot of the behind the scenes stuff as well, which we'll get into.
The TV show in general, I guess, we should set the stage.
Yeah, I mean, can we get into that by me asking you just a general question? Because this is something I was thinking about while I was doing like my research on it, and with the Avengers and the Mod Squad, as you know, those were both shows that neither of us were that familiar with. And I did the dumb going the extra mile to watch an episode of each. This was like a show I didn't have to do that for because I remember watching the show as a kid, so this is actually one I was familiar with and had more of an attachment to. But I wanted to ask you, Chris, because I don't know if you know this, but I'm a little older than you. And I was just curious, like, I was born in 80, so, the late 80s shows and the early 90s shows were shows I was watching, like TV shows, and that TV was, like, really big at the time. I'm about to talk about, like, the point I'm getting to. But I kind of want to ask, like, what's your overall, like, kind of knowledge of like TV in the 80s and like how connected are you to TV, like the landscape of TV in the 80s? Because Miami Vice was part of something that was very interesting that was happening in TV in the 80s, and I'll talk about that. But have you gone back and like watched a lot of 80s shows? You said you weren't too familiar with Miami Vice, but I'm just curious about that.
I haven't gone back, but I used to have sleepovers at my grandparents' house, as a kid, and they would throw on all these old shows. So most of them were in reruns, I guess, because, I was born in 88. So if I was sleeping over there, while, between the ages of 0 and, 6, and I remember we would watch stuff like, what are they called? Oh my God. Columbo, Walker, Texas Ranger. This Miami Vice would come on every once in a while. So I've like seen it, but from an adolescent point of view. What else? What were the three old women that were in that house together? What was that?
Oh, you mean again? Golden Palace? Oh no, sorry, that was the spinoff. Golden Girls.
Golden Girls, yes. Yes, I used to watch a lot of Golden Girls. That show was hilarious. So but yeah, no, that's my knowledge of these types of 80s TV shows are literally like sitting in my grandparents' bed, like watching them with them.
That's what I figured. I wanted to ask because I think the important context to know about Miami Vice, and I'm sure this is something you kind of have a sense of now from reading a little bit more about it, and maybe you did just from like the cultural like perception of the show. What I think is really interesting about TV in the 80s, and I remember like living through this and how exciting it was even as a kid, because I guess it's because you're hearing adults talk about it and you want to be an adult, But what was happening on TV in the 80s, especially like the mid 80s heading into the 90s and then the early 90s, was for the first time ever, a lot of like network TV was starting to look and feel like movies, which had not been the case for a long time. There was a very, very clear delineation between TV and movies. And that's even true, like a little beyond that, if you were a TV actor, it wasn't always the case that you went into movies. And if you were in movies, you certainly didn't want to go down to TV. Right, so there's this clear delineation, but also just the art forms were different. What like the network TV shows of the 50s, 60s, and 70s felt different than what you would see in the theater. And yet in the 80s, that starts to change. And I really think Miami Vice is one of the shows that's like part of the vanguard of that, right? Because it starts in 84. And it was a show that was so groundbreaking at the time, and like so much of it was like ever. I just even as a kid, I remember like picking up on that of being everyone's like, you got to see this show, man. It looks and sounds like nothing else on TV. This is also the same time of the emergence of MTV, and there's even some like apocryphal stories about perhaps the network saying, "Give us MTV cops," essentially, and to lead to the creation of the show. But it is a show that had a slick visual style that was unlike anything on TV at the time, but very heavily influenced by the music videos on MTV. Had a lot of like popular pop music. It's like scenes set to popular songs. It's very famous for in an early episode, including "In the Air Tonight" by Phil Collins, kind of one of the things that like made that song. And just like so like more violent than anything that had been seen. That's what I really remember as a kid, being like, oh, not only did the opening credits like if you go, I don't know if you went and watched the opening credits with the super iconic theme song by Jan Hammer, I think is his name. But the opening credits don't show like Crockett and Tubbs at all. It's like 80% just women in bikinis and their butts and boobs in the screen. And like, when you're a young kid, you're like, this show's the best show ever. And then it's just like random Miami stuff. Oh, look at that. Flamingos. Oh, High Lie, But yeah, so there was a sexuality and a level of violence to it that was like new for TV as well. And so I think this show really started that. And then you kind of head into like, I think it's like the very next year that Moonlighting starts. Is another show that's part of that, and then 30-something in 1987, which is the first time where TV's like, a show can just be about people having like regular lives. It doesn't need to have a high concept. Right. And then of course Twin Peaks in 1990, which is like also often pointed to as like the moment that TV goes super cinematic. So I just wanted to put that context because this is a very, very important show. Unlike, I know the Avengers was an important show at its time. I know the Mod Squad was very popular at its time, but this is one of those shows that was like a cultural force for a moment in the 80s because it completely revolutionized what TV could be, and that's not surprising when you do know that Michael Mann was one of the minds behind it.
It not only revolutionized just TV, but it revolutionized kind of like the what people believe the 1980s to feel and look like.
Yes,
like the fashion of this show had beautiful Italian suit blazers rolled up with the short sleeves and, Italian shoes with no socks. And, it had Ferraris, it had sailboats, it had Ray-Bans. It kind of created that aesthetic completely. Mm-hmm. And so much so that I read here, in every episode, Crockett and Tubbs, who are the two main characters, Detective James Sonny Crockett, played by Don Johnson, and Detective Rico Tubbs, played by Philip Michael Thomas, they would wear 5 to 8 different outfits. Yeah. And they were magazines would show them off. It was like the whole fashion statement. I think one of the biggest, I think Macy's had like their own section that were like the Miami Vice section. Mm-hmm. And you said the music too. This was huge for music. They had $10,000 in budget for every episode for music. And it was like well known to pick like the hottest new tracks. Like you said, Phil Collins was in this. They would boost record sales purely from the show alone. And it makes sense that a video game like a Grand Theft Auto Vice City just basically just rips this completely off or gives homage to it. Obviously they knew what they were doing, but like GTA Vice City is the best GTA, and it's the best for the music, the fashion, the cars, everything, like really everything that this TV show was. And like you mentioned before, now that I know that Michael Mann had such a huge part of the TV show, now I know why all his movies look and sound and feel a certain way. Like that guy knows how to pick a song. And I'll talk about that. It's very cool to see his influence in everything. And then in retrospect, know that it started with this show.
Well, yeah, it did. I wouldn't say it started, but essentially it is obviously very early because, I think it starts with his debut movie is Thief in 81, which is already kind of establishing that Michael Mann vibe and visual style. Mm-hmm. But it is like interesting to note. Like I was kind of thinking about that. Like the timeline even surprised me as someone who knew Miami Vice was a Michael Mann show, and in fact, when this movie came out, remembering that was the exciting thing, right? Like, oh, Michael Mann's returning to the TV show that made his name, in a big way. But like I thought in my head, I definitely like had a memory memory of like Michael Mann already being like a more well-known filmmaker by the time the show came along.
Right.
And no, it's kind of more like what you said. He did Thief, which was like, I don't know. I'm not going to pretend to know if Thief was a huge financial hit at the time. I know today it's really well regarded. But then in '83 he does his second film is The Keep, which is kind of like a notorious disaster for him. A movie he's like, never really got to finish the way he wanted. Not a film he's necessarily proud of. And then he goes right into doing Miami Vice. And I was like, oh, I forgot that he hadn't done a lot. Like during Miami Vice, he does Manhunter, which, is like the first Hannibal Lecter film. And again, starts to more establish his whole style. And then coming out of Miami Vice, he goes into Last of the Mohicans, which I would say, I love that movie, but I think at least visually, it's kind of an outlier in like the the Michael Mann filmography overall, even though it's one of his best films probably. But yeah, like I think what you're kind of hinting at more is like then with '95 with Heat and kind of everything since, right? It's like, it's really like, oh yeah, of course that's the guy that did Miami Vice. And yeah, I'm glad you brought up Grand Theft Auto Vice City, because I know we're going to talk about what like the real origin of this movie is, and it's nothing says that it was heavily influenced by that game's existence, but I think it's very telling that game came out in 2002 and was a huge, like, a huge success and explosion like in the video game world, and it seemed like it primed people for like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if Miami Vice came back? Because it also like part of that game coming out in 2002 is, I think it's weird to say now because we're like now 20 years into it, but that's kind of when it felt like all this 80s nostalgia kind of started, right? Like it was like, oh, we survived the 90s, and I guess now everyone wants to head back to the mid 80s.
I honestly think it was because that game, like that game,
that was a big part of it for sure. I'm not denying it. Yeah,
and
because like here's the thing, Chris. As you know, I'm not a gamer, and even I remember what a big deal that game was. Like
100%. And when that game hit for me, I was in junior high, and a junior high kid with GTA sensibilities is just that's a potent mix. So like listening to all these 80s songs for the first time in my life, hearing them in that game, and then, downloading the music and burning them onto CDs and stuff like that. Like I had so many Vice City mixes on CDs just purely from that game. And even like the fashion, like I know we talked about it just now, but in the show, Miami Vice, there's a rule that there was no earth tones allowed, that everybody had to be in big, pulpy, bright colors. And same with the cars. If things showed up and they looked like they were red or brown, they weren't allowed to be shot because Michael Mann knew what pops on camera. And then you look at that game and it's neon lights. It's like bright colors, bright blue. It's just a blast. And I think you're right. There's no denying that game must have, striked something.
I'm sure it helped grease the wheels in a way of getting this movie made. Yeah.
Oh, for sure. Because the inception of the movie sort of lies on Jamie Foxx bringing the idea to Michael Mann, right?
And we'll get to that later, but yeah, I think that's where it incepts for them. But then you bring it to like the studio, and they're probably like, well, Vice City was just huge, so I guess people are primed for this, because we can't overstate enough that Vice City is just Miami Vice. I mean, that name is no accident, and like you said, like those colors, like everyone wearing pastels. If anyone listening has never seen an episode of Miami Vice and is just wondering what it looks like, maybe I don't know if you'd have this frame of reference, but just imagine what Nicholas Winding Refn's Wet Dreams must look like, and that's like an episode of Miami Vice. It's just like it's like neon and wet streets at night, and bright, as you said, bright colors, and just set to 80s pop music.
I love how we're talking about something so huge and popular like Vice City, and that's like the connection, and then you have to jump in and say, listeners, the real comparison is this movie you definitely haven't watched.
Hey, I bet a lot of our listeners at least like Drive, which is like that's kind of like the most Miami Vice movie in Refn's filmography. But yeah, I mean, you just look at his filmography, and I bring that up because Refn is like maybe to me the most obvious example of just how many filmmakers were influenced by Michael Mann's visual style with Miami Vice and beyond. So and we'll obviously talk about others even with this movie. But that show, I guess this, all the long and short of this is to just say again, super influential show in a way that, by we like when we did Mod Squad Avengers, one of our topics of discussion was, wow, was it really still worth it to like explore that show at that time? And I think Miami Vice held on enough in the culture that even in 2006, I don't think I never saw that as like a discussion point. Nobody was like, I don't know if it's a good idea to go back to Miami Vice. I think it was kind of more like, yeah, that makes sense, especially if Michael Mann's doing it, because we all still love Miami Vice. You know, another thing that helps that too is, I don't know if you know about this, Chris, is for a very, very long time, Miami Vice had a stunt spectacular at Universal Studios in Florida. Eventually that was turned into the Waterworld Stunt Spectacular, which I think we talked about when we did our Waterworld episode. Yeah. But that was originally a Miami Vice one. I remember going to the Miami Vice Stunt Spectacular as a kid, and it was awesome because it was just, I guess we should say the concept of the show. It is about two undercover detectives in Miami. Crockett, played by Don Johnson, as you mentioned, he's kind of like, he's like the ingrained Miami cop who's like a little rebellious and has some, like, you know, a lot of personal issues. He's kind of the bad boy. And then Tubbs is actually, I believe, a New York cop who in the pilot comes to Miami looking for the gangster who killed his brother. And I don't remember well enough like why he stays, but he does. He stays in Miami and becomes Crockett's partner.
I think Crockett's original partner is like killed or something.
That's probably it.
Then Rico becomes his permanent partner.
Yeah, and Edward James Olmos was their captain. Great cast, tons of awesome guest stars again. You know, like Bruce Willis guest starred on it, I believe. And
there's a pet alligator, Elvis.
Yes, I remember Elvis because like Crockett lived. See, this is the thing. I remember when I was a kid, Crockett lived on like a houseboat, which as a kid I was like, that is so cool, right? And then he had a pet crocodile, or pet alligator, but yeah, there's the Miami Vice Stunt Spectacular at Universal Studios was like them like taking down like a drug deal like on a dock, you know. And there's a scene where like the drug runners fly the plane in, and they just maintained all the same shit for the Waterworld Stunt Spectacular. Yeah. But the difference was the Miami Vice one had the Miami Vice theme song, which automatically made it better because that theme song kicks ass.
I was actually surprised that this show got a little darker in tone as it went along. I know it's like known for all its police corruption stuff, drug trafficking, prostitution rings, like all that, like heavy stuff, obviously. But because of, honestly, it's probably the GTA influence in my brain. Thinking that it's more played for fun, and I guess it was fun in the beginning. It was more lighter in the start, but then it did get pretty dark and cynical and almost nihilistic. Like, do you remember that at all?
Well, I don't, because it's interesting because this is one of those things where, and I think this happened a lot when you were a kid, in particular. I mean, hell, it happens a lot now, where you kind of fall out of a show the longer it runs, and I think that was even easier back then because. Back then, we didn't have DVRs and things weren't streaming. Totally. And if you missed a few episodes, you were kind of like, and it was like, it sucked because if you didn't see the rerun or you didn't, tape it on your VCR, you just missed the episode. The kids today just don't understand the pressure of being a TV fan back then. And I was already pretty young watching this show. Again, I was watching it because it was like, oh, this is the cool thing adults watch. But my memory is heavily based on like those early seasons that I would watch with my parents, and definitely having a sense of humor to it. Like Crockett in particular, he was meant to be like a dark character, but he was also always cracking one-liners. He was very like slick and cool and funny. And I don't think I was still watching in those later seasons when it got dark. But reading that too, that just makes me feel, I don't know if this is the case, but I would just think as it got darker, that's probably a matter of Michael Mann starting to exert more power, right?
Yeah, totally.
Starting to say this is what I actually want the show to be. And again, that'll be reflected with the movie as we talk about it. So I'm guessing it's just, he was probably making a lot of concessions to like what the network was expecting the show to be at the beginning. And then as he got more confident, as he had, more film experience, I think he's like, all right, now let's actually start showing what's really like to be an undercover detective, which I think he's ultimately more interested in. And we can talk about that I'm sure in a moment we're going to just talk about our feelings on Michael Mann in general. But one thing that's definitely true about his entire filmography is whatever topic he decides to explore, he's very interested in like the realism of it.
Oh yeah,
and the nitty gritty details of how both cops and gangsters, do their operations. And so I think he was probably just like, yeah, we can get rid of some of these jokes, right? Can we just get really violent and dark?
Yeah, he's all about like high stakes,
yes.
Which I love. Let's talk a little bit about Collateral. I need to bring up that one because that was the movie right before this one. And this is when Michael Mann started his digital phase.
Yeah. And I remember that was such a, Collateral, like that was, oh man, like 50 to 60% of the discussion about that movie when it came out was this movie just doesn't look like anything else. He's using these digital cameras. Some people like absolutely hated it. Some people thought it was cool. I remember seeing it I remember going to see it in the theater and thinking like it looked just so especially like because it's all like in L.A. at night and just how beautiful I thought it looked. And yeah, it's him beginning digital, and it's also, let's just say, it's him beginning putting most filmmakers who try to use digital to shame. Like he has he had like an instant mastery of it that a lot of other filmmakers didn't.
Well, he knew just how much digital cinematography would make night shooting pop, and allowing the natural lighting to take over. He rather than like studio lighting it for the outdoor stuff, he would keep it kind of just natural with street lights and this and that, and it really looks like nothing else. Like Collateral to me is an all-timer. I fucking love Collateral. That was one of those movies where Tom Cruise really proved once again that he is a goddamn movie star, and it was so cool to see him play against type in that one. That, usually you watch a Tom Cruise movie and he's the hero, he's the good guy, he's smirking and, he's doing his stunts, all that stuff. But with Collateral, dude was a ruthless badass, and he was the fucking villain throughout. There was no redemption journey for him in that movie. Yeah. And I just love Collateral for that. It was just so cool. Like the nightclub scene. Oh my God, the music he uses. Collateral's a fucking banger. And
and you bring up Tom Cruise. I think it's also important to say that, at least for me, I don't know for you, but that was, and I know he'd had like acclaimed, like supporting parts in Any Given Sunday and Ali, but like for me, Collateral really was the moment where I was like, holy crap, is like Jamie Foxx for real? Like, is this like, is this guy like an actual like incredible dramatic actor? Is this the beginning of like
that was
a completely different run for him? And it was, right? Like that really, like, because he follows it with Ray, obviously. And so this was the start of a new side of Jamie Foxx.
That was Stealth for me, but I know what you mean.
Okay, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Stealth for me was more Josh Lucas. That's when I was like, okay, this guy's the shit, man. Yeah.
Funny sidebar, but I used to work at the movie theater, for the listeners that are new. In Canada, we have a brand, Cineplex Odeon, and it was one of my first jobs. And every paycheck, you got 2 passes. So to any movie, doesn't matter. And at the time, there was no such thing as like reserved seating, of course, or like premium format. So you get 2 passes with every paycheck. And the one and only movie that I brought my friend Landon to, one of my best friends, I took him to Stealth. And like I took another friend to a staff screening of Blade Trinity. I took my brother to a staff screening of Fantastic Four. Suffice to say, that time was an odd time for movies, but I was getting them for free. And anyway, Stealth, I've seen a lot. I think it's a movie we might have to talk about one day, honestly. I think.
You think? I'll have to look into that. I don't know. I don't know if it's on the list because I wasn't sure about that, but we'll look into it. The thing I always think about with Stealth is that, and there's been other examples of this probably before and definitely since, but it was definitely one of those movies when it came out, I remember just thinking like, oh, this is clearly something Jamie Foxx made before, like, he realized he was going to get an Oscar for Ray. It was like his follow-up to his like Academy Award-winning performance, and you're like, yeah, there's no way he wanted this to be the next movie after he won the Oscar for Ray. Just like, whoops, I made this dumb action movie, and then I didn't realize that performance was going to blow up the way it did. Which I mean, he should have, because he's great in Ray. But oops, it happens. But yeah, and I mean, obviously, we should because Michael Mann does Ali in 2001, which is a movie I have mixed feelings on. I think Will Smith is incredible in that, and there's some great sequences, but I think the movie's kind of like a miss overall for me. And then Collateral in 2004, and then Miami Vice in 2006. So he worked with Jamie Foxx 3 movies in a row. So I mean, obviously, he found him to be like for at least a while, they synced up well, and were collaborators who really respect each other. Well, he hasn't made another movie with Jamie Foxx since Miami Vice. We'll talk about that, but yeah, he was really locked into him. But I think in general, we kind of we blew past it, but I think it's pretty clear from what we were saying. I mean, just in general, you would call yourself a Michael Mann fan, right? Like,
oh yeah, of course.
Yeah, me too. I mean, Heat is one of like my all timers. Yeah.
Like, I know you didn't like it as much as I did, but I really loved Ferrari.
I liked Ferrari. I just thought, I felt like it was a really good dad movie. That's all. Sure. Which is no disrespect to that. But hey, you know what? I'll put my hat down. I like Public Enemies a lot more than a lot of people do. I think that's actually that movie gets trashed a lot, and I think it's pretty good. So, yeah.
But I'm well known on this podcast to really hate how Hollywood cannot get Italians right ever. And it's always, hey, what's a come and a go all the time. And Ferrari is that. But I found it compelling enough to supersede that. I thought Adam Driver was awesome. And the star of that movie is Penelope Cruz. And it's a real shame that I don't think I saw anybody but me and you, and that's about it, who talked about her performance. So
yeah, it was weird. I thought she seemed like a shoo-in for an Academy Award nomination to me.
Oh my god!
But yeah.
Instead,
strange.
What's Her Nuts got it? Didn't she get it? Didn't they nominate
Shailene Woodley?
Did she get a nomination?
No, they did not. No.
Okay.
I think they nominated her for Get the Hell Out of Hollywood after that performance. Like,
yeah, that was not good.
Yeah.
Not good. Okay.
I sort of agree with you on the Hollywood doing Italians part, except I will. I mean, I think the only problem is that Jared Leto just like perfected it so much in House of Gucci that there's like no point for any other actor to even try. You know.
Never confuse shit with cioccolato. They may look the same, but the taste very different. Trust me. I know.
I can't believe you've made me put that clip in this episode. You son of a bitch. Okay. Miami Vice. Obviously, we know why this was greenlit. Collateral, big hit. Jamie Foxx, rising star / just wins an Oscar. Michael Mann, on the upward trajectory, coming back. His passion project at this point. Hey, Michael, what do you want to make? You know what? I finally want to get around to making the movie of the TV show that I had such a huge hand in making.
Well, let's because we alluded to it before. Let's talk about the Jamie Foxx part of that as well.
Yeah,
because it was Jamie Foxx's idea. I believe it was wasn't it at the wrap party for Collateral
for Ali. For Ali.
Okay, so it starts a little earlier. Yeah, so at the rap party for Ali, Jamie Foxx walks up to Michael Mann and is basically like, "Hey, man, Miami Vice movie, me, Tubbs. You ever think about it?" And Michael Mann's like, "No, but that sounds great. And you know what? Sounds like money printed immediately." That's probably what he's thinking. You know. Yeah. So like this is a seed that begins with Jamie Foxx because he wanted to work together with Michael Mann again, which they would do for Collateral, and that keeps the relationship going. And then they head into Miami Vice.
And just a little inside baseball on the cinematography as well. The look of Miami Vice keeps that digital look going, and Michael Mann hires the cinematographer from Collateral. So that's why it's got a very samey look to that.
Dion Beebe. Yeah. I think we don't often mention cinematographers' names, which probably, I wish we did more often, but this is a movie where I believe we should because the visuals are very important to this movie.
Big time.
Yeah.
Anyway, this production for Miami Vice goes haywire.
What are you talking about?
It goes completely off the rails. The budget is reportedly it just completely inflates because of hurricanes, weather conditions. Michael Mann is a notorious perfectionist, but also a fly by the seat of his pants kind of guy. So reports are that he's writing the script as they go, that he's changing locations and setups and action scenes and dialogue scenes, and he's re-editing, on paper as they go too. And Jamie Foxx is kind of a nightmare to work with because at this point, he has won the Oscar for. He wins
the Oscar. Yeah, he wins the Oscar after signing on, but before production begins. So it is not the same Jamie Foxx coming to set. And in fact, when he knows, Jamie Foxx isn't dumb. When he suggests this movie, he knows that Tubbs is the sidekick. That was the case in the show, right? There's a reason why that movie or that show really launched Don Johnson's career, and you don't hear that much about Philip Thomas Hall, right? That's no offense to him, but that's just true, right? So I think the expectation was always, same thing with the movie, right? We'll get a star to play Crockett, and then Tubbs will be the sidekick. And we'll talk about. We'll just say. No need dancing around. They cast Colin Farrell as Crockett, and the assumption at that time is, they sign on. Colin Farrell's getting a bigger salary than Fox. He's top billed. The poster shows him front and center, and then production begins, and suddenly Jamie Foxx is demanding top billing. and demanding a higher salary than Colin Farrell. And I think it says a lot for Colin Farrell. We'll talk about his own issues during this movie, but I think it says a lot about him as a performer and a person, that from everything I've read and heard, he just kind of like was like, okay, like whatever. He didn't care, he was just like, fine, take it out of my salary and just give more to him. Like, and whatever. I just want to make the movie. I just want to work with Michael Mann. He also had some other things going on that was probably leading to that. But yeah, he was like, yeah, whatever. Like, he didn't want to be a diva, whereas it sounds like Jamie Foxx was nothing but a diva during this. We can talk. You want to talk more about
I do. Yeah, Jamie Foxx refused to fly commercial, and this was a huge problem because, as we'll talk about, this movie is shot on location in a lot of countries, in the Caribbean, Uruguay, Paraguay, and South Florida. So he demanded a private jet. So Universal got him a private jet. Mm-hmm. That was a big part of him being so, well, diva-y, as you said. Mm-hmm. He also objected.
Go ahead.
Yeah, like the best part about okay, Miami Vice.
Yes.
What do you think?
Let's make Miami Vice. Yes. Okay.
Yes. So I'm going to ask you, and we just discussed it for a while, but what Trev? I'm making a Miami Vice movie. Okay. Uh-huh. Can you name me a few things that are kind of iconic to Miami Vice?
Oh, I would think there's probably gonna be some scenes on like boats. Okay. Maybe we'll have some scenes in planes. Okay, yeah. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah. You know what? Jamie Foxx doesn't want to be on those things. Jamie Foxx refused to shoot scenes on boats and planes.
Yeah.
Which is absolutely hilarious to me. And the craziest thing that happened on this set, Michael Mann likes his realism, as we said.
Yes.
So he decides to shoot in locales that even the police don't like going to. Mm-hmm. So he wants to be in the nitty-gritty, the gangsters, underground, all that shit. And I guess
not even in America. Like we're talking, this is like what you're about to talk about is in the Dominican Republic. This movie was filmed in there were scenes filmed in the Caribbean and Uruguay and Paraguay, and in the Dominican Republic they do some filming, and he just hires kind of like local
military,
local military to be like the security. Yeah, but I'm not like official military either, but just like local people who are in the military. But it's not like this is like sanctioned by the government, I don't think.
And I guess a guy that was dressed as a cop goes onto the set to the private security. A brawl ensues, and somebody got shot. And as soon as Jamie Foxx heard about that, he packed up all his stuff and his people, and surprisingly got on a plane, which is hilarious because he doesn't want to be on planes. But he flew back to the States, and then just kind of totally refused to come back anywhere else but the States, causing Michael Mann to completely throw out his original ending to the film that takes place in Paraguay. And what we'll get to when we talk about the film proper is a pretty big sticking point for Michael Mann's view on the film and its legacy. It supposedly, and we don't actually have many details about the finale that should have been shot, because Michael Mann hasn't really told anyone, but it was very different, and he is very sad that he never got to do the ending. He has come around on the original ending, but it's one of those sore spots I think he has in his career. And Jamie Foxx fucked it all up. So
yeah, I think it's mostly a sore spot, because my guess and my assumption is it's probably the same sequence, but in a more visually dynamic setting, right? If it's going to be in Paraguay, that's what I'm thinking.
That's fair.
Like more tropical and just more interesting looking than what we get, and we'll talk about it. But I think the sore spot from him is more just the breakdown of the working relationship he had with Jamie Foxx up to that point. There was a great after the fact article about the production of this movie, because this is a movie where a lot of this stuff was very known as it was being made. This is where internet.
This is a bad buzz movie.
Yes, it was. And the internet reporting of behind the scenes stuff on movies was really picking up at this point, and people were more aware of if a movie was a nightmare production. And so immediately as this movie was coming out, there's kind of post-mortems already written, and I know in one of them they asked Michael Mann about Jamie Foxx leaving and refusing to film the original ending, and Michael Mann just says nothing for a moment and then says, "You hear the sounds of silence." So that was kind of, he just like wouldn't, he's just being like, yeah, I'm not going to say anything about it. But clearly he was upset. And yeah, and so we also mentioned like how, Michael Mann likes his realism and he likes things to have like this level of like danger to them. So they're also filming, like there's a hurricane in Miami while they're filming. And he's like, that's fine. Let's just go out and film in it. Like, everyone's like, what? There's not supposedly, it's a true story. There's a scene where they had like Colin Farrell and Jamie Foxx filming like a driving in a car scene like during the hurricane.
The only vehicle that Jamie Foxx allows himself to be in.
Yeah, I think it was like an open top convertible, and the storm got so bad while they're filming that a window in a building shattered above them and glass like poured down onto the car, almost hit the actors. So he was putting like I kind of understand, I'm not going to lie here. Like, as much as the Jamie Foxx being a diva thing, I think there's like a right to be upset on some of these things. And I know I would definitely feel shaky being on a set where someone was shot, because of the security that was hired. So it was kind of like a huge mess. Boy, it sure would be great to ask Colin Farrell what he thought about all this, right? You can't, because he doesn't remember making this movie. That's the other nightmare element of this film, at least on like from probably his perspective. This is made at a time, so to kind of set like the context of Colin Farrell, because this is also something I definitely remember of the time. This is Colin Farrell was like one of those actors who I remember the buzz on him was really like, why is Hollywood like shoving this guy down our throat so much?
Is this
right?
during his you gorgeous, you gorgeous, you gorgeous? His little sex tape there. Was that
it might be. That's the sex tape. You know what? I know
you're fucking gorgeous.
It seemed like a good idea at the time. Two adults having fun with a video camera.
Nothing wrong with that. Nothing
No,
wrong with
there
that.
wasn't
As long as
anything
you
wrong
don't
with
let the tape get into the wrong hands.
Well, that's it. And at the end of the deposition, because it was all very officious in a law office in Los Angeles, and the man that was in charge said, well, you've learned your lesson, I hope, Mr. Farrell. And I said, absolutely, next time I take the tape with me.
Was it for you to look back on later, though?
No, it's all not about that. It's kind of some pseudo-taboo thing about, video camera. It wasn't about playing it back or anything, but I don't know what it was about. I think I was high. That's probably more what it was about.
Probably was just a little bit, you make bad decisions.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it maybe won you some fans as well, because a lot of people I know watched it said, really? Boy, he's a well-developed young fella. He's puberty was kind to this boy,
Really?
Yeah.
It's not so bad. I might have got some of my better reviews, which would be depressing. But I just wanted to make sure, because the whole thing, I got offered a pile of money to sign off on it and have it on command in hotels and stuff. Could you imagine if my mother came along and, God forbid, she'd tell me something like, "Oh, you remind me of your father at certain angles." So I couldn't have that. So.
The sex tape is when Daredevil happens, because he's got his like bullseye head shaved in the sex tape. Yeah,
you're right.
No, he bursts on the scene, at least in America, like in 2000 with Joel Schumacher's Tigerland, which is an incredible movie and an incredible performance from him that I still think more people need to see, because you're like, wow, you watch that movie and you go like, yeah, this guy was destined to be like one of the greats, But then obviously he really takes a hold when Steven Spielberg plucks him to play like the secondary kind of the antagonist in Minority Report opposite Tom Cruise, which was looked at the time, I remember, as like kind of a big deal. Like, ooh, is this like the next Tom Cruise already in a movie with Tom Cruise? But then he like makes a lot of I don't know if I want to call them missteps, but I mean, I quite like Phone Booth, his next Joel Schumacher movie. His accent in it is probably a misstep. I like the movie, but like The Recruit, Daredevil, SWAT, none of these hit. We'll eventually talk about Daredevil and SWAT, in fact. And then, it's just like, I remember just like everyone, he just kept being put in movies front and center. And there was so much like, oh my God, we're just so sick of Colin Farrell. And I don't know if that was part of this. He always says it's just more like, hey, I'm Irish and this is what happens with Irish guys. But by the time you get to Miami Vice, he's battling a lot of addictions.
Yeah,
he is addicted to drugs. He's particularly an alcoholic. And it's a really rough period for him. We'll talk when we get into the film about how if we think it influences performance, but he has definitely said in retrospect, I don't mean to be too flippant about it, because it's actually pretty sad to hear him say that like, here he was working with Michael Mann making this high profile movie and he just literally has no memory of it. Like that's kind of how far gone he was at this time, which is actually kind of depressing.
It sucks that he can't remember having love scenes with Gong Li, because I would like to remember those.
Yes. Yeah. that's a real tragedy of it all.
Yeah. Michael Mann, just to go back to him for a little bit, just about his, I don't want to call him a tyrant, That's not what I don't want to call him that, but by all accounts in Hollywood, he is a very demanding director. Yeah. He reminds me of somebody like a James Cameron, where you hear these stories where they dress you down, they yell, but they're also trying to make something incredible, you know? Mm-hmm. And I think at the time working with Jamie Foxx, where he's on this huge rising star, you know, reached the absolute top that you can as an actor. And then also you have Colin Farrell, who is stumbling, you know, in his rise and dealing with it with a substance abuse problem. This is kind of this weird, chaotic recipe for a total disaster of a film. And I mean, like, we're going to talk about what we feel about it, but it kind of makes sense that these three big personalities and whatever they're going through in such strange, different parts of their professional lives and personal lives, that it came off the screen perhaps at the time and the audience wasn't ready for this. You know what I mean?
It is really funny to think about an alternate world where just for like this movie actually does hit, and then those three guys like they have to get back together. Like, all right, let's do it again. Like, oh man, like,
yeah, and they all like hate each other.
Yeah, because Michael Mann hasn't worked with either of them since, and so it's pretty crazy. But I will say too to the Michael Mann thing, because I think it's interesting and it's just important. Like, I don't know if it's important context, but for our show, this like bums me out in a certain degree because. You know, you made the comparison between Michael Mann and James Cameron, which I think is dead on in terms of like, yeah, they're tough to work for, but the results speak for themselves. So we kind of like give it a pass a little bit. Mm-hmm. But like Michael Mann, he's had some hits, but nothing on the level of like a Terminator 2 or a Titanic or an Avatar, right? But he ends up with these movies that are like really well acclaimed, you know, like movies that like, kind of like hold on in the zeitgeist and critics love. And in fact, we talked about this like nightmarish production of Miami Vice and how we didn't mention, but it's probably obvious from what we were saying with all the storms and Michael Mann doing things on the fly and having to rewrite the ending. The budget keeps inflating like while they're making it. It ends up being way like more money spent than Universal expected. But what I thought was really telling was in one of the first articles at the time that was written about like the nightmare production on Slate.com. One of the people they interviewed was the Universal chairman of the time, a guy named Mark Schmooger. Great name, by the way.
Yeah, that's a good.
And he talked about that. When you read his quote, it's so like depressing to me because it's so indicative of a different time in movies that we don't have anymore. Because he like flat out said it's almost like he knew Miami Vice was going to bomb, and he said that doesn't really matter to him. I'll just read his quote right from the article. He says, "The key on looking at the profitability of Michael's movies is that they've got a very long tail well after the theatrical run. Everybody's seen Heat. Everybody's seen Last of the Mohicans. The films do fantastically well in video, on all television outlets, overseas." So he was like, yeah, this is going kind of nuts. And like, I don't, you know, like he's overspending. The movie is probably not going to be profitable, but that's okay because if it's like Heat, like people will keep buying the DVDs in years later, and we'll still make money of it on TV, and people will come back around to it. And that's not a mentality that exists anymore. No. And for a long time, filmmakers like Michael Mann, Scorsese, Robert Altman, like Michael Nichols, these guys could make studio movies that weren't huge hits because the studios were just kind of like, that's okay. We'll have a couple blockbusters this year to make up for that, but we want to be in the business of supporting these filmmakers because it gives us more acclaim and because their movies like hang on. And man, it's a bummer to see that gone. And so even though this movie was like a nightmare production, I wish we still had studio heads where we're like, yeah, I know, like, you know, but, even like this happened to Michael Mann, like you see the world change under him. After Black Hat bombed, he did not have any more clout in Hollywood, right? It took him a long time until he could get Ferrari made. So he saw that world change even during his career. Yeah.
And Ferrari did not do well.
Isn't it interesting? What's like after Ferrari? What is he like? Well, I guess I'll make Heat 2. You know, and I'm not saying he doesn't want to make Heat 2. Obviously, he wrote the book and he's like looking to adapt it. But I think he's also aware I have to make Heat 2. Right? Like that's what people are going to give me money for. It's probably the only thing I'm going to get money for now. Yeah.
So let's talk about this movie. Yeah, let's do it.
All right.
Yeah.
Are you afraid of violence?
We get down. If the play calls for it, bud.
We're here for business.
That's right.
We can close each other's eyes right now real fast.
Then ain't nobody gonna make no money.
This is Detective Crockett, Miami-Dade PD. We got him. No one has ever tread before where we are now. We're seeing their operations from the inside.
Your agency cannot know how they do whatever it is they do.
Take it to the limit one more time.
Things get emotional, moves get messy, and the wrong people die.
There's undercover, and then there is which way is up.
You think I'm in so deep I forgot?
I never doubt you.
After a tragic security breach, the FBI asks for help from the Miami authorities. The assignment goes to detectives James Sonny Crockett and Ricardo Rico Tubbs. Going undercover as offshore boat racers and outlaw smugglers, Sonny and Rico take on the narco-trafficking network of the mysterious archangel De Jesus Montoya Londano and his Cuban-Chinese banker, Isabella. The intensity of the case pushes Crockett and Tubbs out onto the edge where identity and fabrication become blurred, where cop and player become one, especially when Crockett falls for Isabella and when there's an assault on Tubbs' loved ones.
Pretty good synopsis of a notoriously complicated, confusing, hard to follow movie. But Chris, I say that this was not a first time watch for me, but it was for you, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes, it was. Yeah.
All right, so I'm curious. I'll let you go first. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on Miami Vice, especially as someone who's just kind of going into this property like kind of fresh and new.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Me and Trev never text each other before we watch films. So we always like to surprise our reviews to each other and our thoughts while we live record. It just adds for fun for us and everybody else, hopefully. Now, we watched a couple disaster films before this. And
not disaster films that were disasters.
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
And I just had to text Trev something.
Yeah.
And the credits rolled. I had my notes done, and I texted Trev. All I have to say about Miami Vice is that thank God we watched a real movie again. And I think this movie is awesome. This is totally what I was in the mood for when I watched it. It is such a vibes movie that I think...
Miami vibes.
I'm leaving. No, that's exactly it. This is a vibes movie that if you're on the wavelength, you're in and you're enjoying it. We got cool cars. We got speedboats. We got suit jackets. We got Miami nightlife. We got drugs. We got whores. We got clear villains. We got on-location shooting. We got shootouts.
Numb Encore by Linkin Park and Jay-Z.
Oh my God. So much so that I don't know if I'll be able to use the trailer for this podcast. I might have to just sing it. We get nudity. We get F-bombs. We get, this is this is a movie made by adults for adults. So much with these TV retreads or, I guess, TV forays into the theatrical realm, it's like this big, like, nostalgia bait boner thing. You know what I mean? It's like just give them everything that they knew before and make the plebs happy, And it's so wild to me that Michael Mann was like, I spent 5 years making that show. And all these years later, I finally get an opportunity to make something for who I am today and what I want to show the world today in my age, whatever he was, but his sensibilities. And to ground this the way he does, to make it as real as it is, to make it focused on more of mood and tone versus like the narrative. I know it's got criticized for being style over substance, but I just don't care. I think this movie's awesome and ahead of its time. Heat influenced the crime drama genre so much, right? And I genuinely feel that Miami Vice, for all its warts and everything, this thing created or at least inspired this realm we've been in for the last 10 years of the drug trafficking media. Like Narcos and Sicario, stuff like that. And I think it needs more credit. I could go on. There's more things I want to say, but sorry. I now I feel like I'm vamping. So you got to go.
No, that's fine. Yeah, it's exciting to hear you get like that, like kind of passionate about it. Because this is, like we said, this is a movie that came out at the time. And like I think it had its defenders right away. But like for the most part, the general response to this movie was, huh? Like, like what? Like, it doesn't make any sense. I can't understand the dialogue. They're not really kind of characters. They're just like living tropes, and like it's just all visuals. Like you said, style over substance. It's not the show. And I'll tell you, I didn't see this in the theater, so I saw it right when it hit DVD. And I remember on my first viewing, not being super negative on it, but having kind of that reaction, right, of being like, what? Like this is odd, right?
Sure.
And what happened is like and I'm guessing you saw this too. Like over time, people started to kind of reappraise this film, and it started to really find more of a following. And I think, is particularly in recent years, what you've seen is it has like this really intense kind of cult following now that can be almost like annoying about how much they love it. And baby, that's me. I'm one of those people. I have come so far around this movie. It is a movie I love more and more every time I watch it. And it is, you're right, it's a movie that you just have to like give yourself over to. And once you understand like that's what Michael Mann is doing, and really it's no surprise because like starting with like, with like there's sequences in Ali that speak to this, Collateral definitely speaks to this, and I think in this regard, Miami Vice is his masterpiece. Michael Mann is really this like kind of incredible mainstream experimentalist.
Yeah.
He's like one of the best filmmakers at like merging art house with mainstream sensibilities. And that's what he's doing here, right? I've seen people call this like one of the highest budgeted art films of all time. And that's kind of true because he's removing a lot of the stuff that would make a traditional, Hollywood cop movie, and instead just focusing on like the mood of what it must feel like to be in this world.
Totally.
And it's amazing to me. And I think the best comparison point is Twin Peaks: The Return. I think of like David Lynch as someone who did this TV show, Twin Peaks, and twice actually, right? First with the movie, Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me, and then especially with Twin Peaks: The Return, comes back to it and everyone goes, great, we love Twin Peaks. We're really excited that we're going to see more of that. And the filmmaker saying, yeah, I've done that.
Totally.
That's not what I'm interested in anymore. I'm interested in something way different. My like view on filmmaking has changed. What I'm interested in has changed. I'm an older person. Here's my new version of the same thing. And David Lynch did it there. It was awesome. And that's what Michael Mann does here and says, okay, yeah, the show exists, but this is like the real Miami Vice. And yeah, I love it.
I'm so glad you mentioned David Lynch because I'm gonna mention him later in my notes. So I just had to remind you to remind me. But keep going. Sorry.
Okay, no, that's my initial thoughts. Like I am definitely of the cult of Miami Vice nowadays.
Yeah.
I love this movie. It's something I can, like you say, because it's a vibes movie, because you don't necessarily have to pay attention to the plot. Although I will say, honestly, especially, all it takes is kind of, I think, one or two viewings. The plot is not really as complex as people make it out to be.
It's not.
I think people just get kind of overwhelmed by the feel of the movie. And I think a lot of the movie is so kind of intense and it feels so different than what you expect it to be and what a lot of Hollywood movies are, that maybe it even distracts people from some of the plot elements and they just miss it. But especially if you've seen it once or especially twice and watch it again, you can follow the plot a lot easier. But that's not even the point, right? I admit, like, that's not, I can follow it, but like, I don't care. I just care about each moment. Like you said, it is the vibes. It's like, oh man, look how amazing this looks. The digital photography is beautiful. The performances are interesting. I mean, I'll just say right now, I know I'm wrapping up, but like, for everything we said about Jamie Foxx being a nightmare while making this and Colin Farrell like losing his mind while making this, they're both excellent in it. Like they're both great. So it's just like this, it was just like this kind of, it's one of those things where I really think the troubled production, everything like crazy about the making of it actually fed into, oh my God, they made one of those like almost accidental masterpieces because of it.
The amount of times I was so happy when they were just on real rooftops.
Yeah. I know.
And like in real Miami. And in real, Paraguay or whatever they were,
and with those like those pink night skies behind them, right?
and like the tropical storm that almost maimed everybody. You see like the wind in the clouds above them. That is obviously storm, and you're just like, oh my God, it's so beautiful. Like I'm so glad that they captured that on film, or I guess on digital. I love the Bad Boys franchise, and I started this podcast off with the Bad Boys joke and. I love those characters, and I'm very much looking forward to Bad Boys 4. Maybe that will be the movie to save movies. Not sure, but it's not looking good.
Yeah.
But the Miami Vice is like the other side of that Miami-based crime thriller coin. This is deathly serious, gritty, and realistic. And Bad Boys is just like super fun, And I think... what's so interesting about Miami Vice is it's not just doing Bad Boys. right? Like it's doing something so different.
It's not even, it's barely doing Miami Vice.
Yeah, exactly. It is taking something that is serious in like plot and nature. They're taking something seriously. And I found that very, very refreshing. And like these two characters, you know, Jamie Foxx and Colin Farrell, I really do buy into their relationship. Like, I guess they may have had issues, but perhaps keeping each other at arm's length, offset, added to their subdued long-term relationship that they have in the film.
Yes.
You know, like me and you know, we've known each other now for, oh my God, I think it's 10 years. I think it might be 10 years soon, eh? Like, I think we're coming up. And we break each other's balls. We're not mean-spirited, but like we, you know, I know sometimes we can cut a jab that maybe goes a little too deep, but also we can be playful the next moment. And I think that is a sign of a great friendship, that you can have those moments where, you know, okay, a friend of mine asked me recently, you know, how the podcast was going, right? And I said, fucking awesome. I love it. It's something I look forward to, you know, every 2 weeks. And he said, how long do you think you'll keep going? And I said, you know, it's something we really just don't talk about because we see no end in sight because we enjoy doing this. And if we have an issue with each other on or off mic, it's never more than what two great friends can get over. And when I watch these two characters and I see their relationship where they're a little standoffish sometimes, but then also they back each other up no matter what. Like there's this great scene where the FBI wants to fuck around with the case and Sonny is like, we got to stay in it. And then Rico or Tubbs goes, yeah, I agree with him. You know, he could easily fight back, but he's like, no, like I trust him. Yeah. We have a relationship here. And I found it just very real. It goes back to that real grit of long-term male relationships, honestly. And I just really found it, I just found something in it.
Yeah, I mean, you're making the comparison to you and I, but I mean, I think the big difference is like you and I just host a movie podcast. We're not like doing something that like where we're constantly thinking my best friend might get shot and killed.
Totally.
You know, so that's the thing. Like, I get that the relationship they have in this movie is like much more subdued than the one in the TV show, and they're not funny and they're not joking. And in fact, I would agree with, and I've seen this criticism, I would argue that they don't have like much of a friendly relationship in the movie. But I think that's totally fine because what does come through, as you just said, is that these are two guys who might not be friends outside of work, and that might be they're putting up these barriers, right? That's what a lot of the movie's about, especially with the Crockett character, right? About what this kind of job does to you when you're constantly going undercover in this world, and how hollow of a person you become, and the psychological
that's how I feel about failure to franchise.
Yes, we had to watch the Avengers and the Mod Squad.
Yeah, to fucking back.
Yeah,
listeners.
No, but like so. They probably put up this barrier saying, well, I'm not going to be super friendly with this person, right? Especially Crockett. I think Crockett just pulls everyone. And so like when he finally in the movie finds like this person who he's like just has an attraction to, he's like, well, this is like, I'm just going to like go for it in like a crazy way too, right? That's a big part of the movie. But like the thing that's more interesting to me is that these two guys aren't jokey. They're not like buddy, but they've worked together long enough that they are both super impressed with each other, like just as professionals, and they implicitly trust each other, and that's like more interesting to me because, like you said, there are multiple sequences where that's shown where they're just like, well, I trust him, I trust you, you know, and so like if that's your decision, then I back you 100% because I've been in this shit with you long enough to know you're probably making the right decision in the moment.
And that's so much more interesting than showing me an origin story. You know, like we have railed for or against films that have origin stories, right? Like when we talked about the Mod Squad, I was disappointed that we didn't get to see these kids find each other.
Yeah, that's an important distinction. Before anyone like calls us hypocrites for saying like, well, the Mod Squad needed to be an origin story, but we love that this one isn't. That's because the Mod Squad had a premise that needs explaining.
Yes.
Right? Like, wait, they're juvenile delinquents who are now cops? How does that work? Why would they care? Why are they interested? These are two vice cops. Okay. I got it.
Yeah,
like,
totally.
Need nothing more. Yeah. Like,
and I think throwing you into the story in this one just adds so much flavor to the mix. And also, there's no origin, sure, but there is a arc of something because the FBI is recruiting them for the first time. Mm-hmm. So it's like we at least have something of a starting point of how are they going to deal with this level of oversight, right? And you kind of get into unknown territory, and which adds a lot of drama, like the scene that I said when they're like, we got to stay in this undercover stuff for like a bunch more drops for the drug drops, right? And I just found it riveting.
Even the fact of like them inserting themselves into the FBI investigation, right? Like kind of like putting like they're asked to be in it, but then they want to take it even further, right? Mm-hmm. Like they're not done when the FBI says they're done. They said like no, we can go even further than this, and getting involved in it because of how it's attached to like an informant they used to work with. It's just great. Like that's the thing. Like I totally agree with you. And like even speaking to that level of like how to me it's so interesting to see that kind of male relationship based on professionalism. Again, that's a thing Michael Mann is very, very interested in.
Yeah.
You think of like the heist crew in Heat. And I think this is very comparable to Heat in that, to me, what is fascinating about this movie, and I'm going to bring up again, I know I always do, but yes, I watched this with my fiance, and look, I'll admit, and this is no shade to her.
I thought you were going to bring up Star Trek, so that's okay.
No. No shade to her, because I also get it. She was one of the people who was, she just wasn't taken with this. Like she was like, it's not for me. Like the style of her substance, the vibes thing. I think she wanted more than that. But then I was talking to her afterwards about what I like about it. And to me, this is very similar to like a lot of what I like about Heat. And I'm actually reading the Heat 2 novel right now to get prepared for the movie maybe getting made. And this is also true of the novel. It's just how Michael Mann is interested in like the nitty gritty details of how professionals do their job. And how much more interesting that is when the professionals we're talking about are undercover detectives or gangsters, right? And like getting into, okay, here's how they plan every single aspect of the heist. And here's all the pieces and how they go together. And then we're going to show them plan it and then we're going to do it. And I was talking about how like I love that. I love how this movie gets into like all the details of like these undercover operations. And then my fiance was just like, she's like, so you liked it because like they said transpo? And I was like, actually, yeah. Give me like when they say transpo, when they say OPSEC, yeah, give me more of that. Just give me more of it because so many movies about this kind of subject matter are just so dumb.
And I love that. Give me all the hand movements, all that shit.
Give me all the hand signals. And, oh my god, the siege on the trailer park.
Oh my god, it's tense. It's by the book. It's skillful and it's clean. You know what I mean? It's like obviously it doesn't end well, but up until that point, you're like, oh yeah, these guys are pros. Cool.
That's what I like. I think I'm like Michael Mann in that I like seeing professionals do their job well on film, and I think like he's obsessed with that. I'm obsessed with it, and that's what this movie's obsessed with. And it's just it's a beauty to see. In addition to the movie just being visually beautiful and just like having great vibes, it's also like he focused on like the right thing to make this interesting. Yeah, he could have made a very jokey, funny Miami Vice movie, but he's like no, let's show what this world is really like. Because then if you show what the world's really like, you also understand more why it would like do what it does to Crockett, right? Like why he would be so detached and be kind of this like I've seen people describe Crockett or just Colin Farrell, and this is looking like a walking like bags of cocaine given sentience. But it's like that again, like that level of that like detached thing that maybe came from what was like really happening in Colin Farrell's real life works so well for this character. So it just all comes together.
Yeah, your business. How much volume you do, whose product you move, who you work with. Other than Nicolas, who the fuck knows you?
Well, my mommy and daddy know me. And we don't talk about who we work with.
We didn't come down here to audition for business. Business auditions for us.
And knows all about us before they call Nicholas. That way we don't waste that gas. Or our motherfucking time. You want us to be telling you about our shit? You can't find out on your own. Why do I not buy that?
You with DEA, the fee? What's up? They talking about transport line? You with the man?
You weren't a liar.
I'm gonna tell you what's gonna happen.
People gonna come in here, you know what they're gonna say? They're gonna look around and they're gonna go, hola, hijo. That's some crazy motherfucking wallpaper. What is that?
Jackson Pollock?
No vehicle. That was Jose Euro, who got splattered all over his own wall.
So, we can close each other's eyes right now real fast. Then ain't nobody gonna make no money.
He's detached, but like soulful. You know, like he's detached, but he's not like incompetent. You know what I mean? Like he just seems like run down. But then, you know, in the film, he starts up a love affair with Isabella, played by Gong Li. And I mean, first of all, I mean, both of them are very attractive. I'll just say it like that. But Gong Li is like, wow. You know, good for you.
Did you know that is a 100% phonetic performance? She did not speak English at all and had to just learn everything phonetically in the moment. Yeah.
And I was gonna say that because you said that people, you know, sometimes didn't understand what people were saying in the movie, and I noticed you said something about people like mumbled through the film, so people don't know what's going on. I think that phonetic affectation, I guess, of how she speaks, really adds to her character. There's something about it that makes her a little bit more exotic, you know, and a little bit otherworldly, and there's a charm to her. So I was in. I mean, it doesn't help that she's like the fucking super sexy. So I mean, whatever. She could have been speaking, well, Chinese. I have no idea. But I thought their chemistry really worked. Like they were hot and heavy, and I get that. You know, I don't know about you, but you know, vacation love is real. And it can be a fucking blast.
there's a sequence in this movie that'll just tell you, because like again, both I and my fiance had different reactions to it.
Sure.
Whether you're in or out on this movie in general will probably you can probably figure out if you buy into, you know, being attracted to someone, going after them and asking to buy them a drink. While you're in Miami, right? And then being like, okay, you can take me to Cuba right now to get a drink. And just hopping onto a speedboat and zooming over to Cuba, which would be probably like a 3-hour journey, you know? But if you go like, that's awesome, then this is probably the movie for you. If you go like, that's dumb, that's weird, maybe you're not going to be into the vibes of this. But love it.
No, I love that. That's like in Friends when Jon Favreau says to Monica, let's go for pizza. And then they go to Italy. It's awesome. Yeah. It's fucking sick. Yeah. Who doesn't like that?
Thomas Crown pulls this crap too, right? It's like, these guys got it going on. They know what they're doing.
100%. Okay. What's with Naomi Harris's Rosie Perez impression?
You know, look, when you're like the side characters in this movie, you got to do what you can to make it interesting, right? It's interesting because I will say what I think is cool about this too is like, the whole crew, I believe every single one of them are also like they were characters in the TV show as well. And it's a little like unglamorous for them here because when you do a TV show, the idea is, you know, there's going to be like, especially back then, right? A network TV show, 24 episodes. Oh, we'll probably have episodes focusing on the other members of the team, right? But this is the Crockett and Tubbs movie. So the crew doesn't get much. And the one who probably does get the most is Naomi Harris because she's in a relationship with Tubbs. So there's a little bit more there. But the other like members are just kind of like the crew, and yet I love this crew. Like that's again, it speaks to like Michael Mann. Just again, when you just show people who know what they're doing and doing it very well, I'm like so in with this like entire team, even though they're not given personalities, most of them. Like Justin Theroux, I couldn't tell you anything about his character in this. But I don't care. I'm just so in on this crew, and I'm like rooting for them, and I love they're just. They have a little bit of banter together, but really I'm just rooting for them as like a team and pulling it off. Yeah. I have to ask really quickly because it ties into the Naomi Harris element. Did you see the director's cut or the theatrical cut? Do you know?
Theatrical.
So you didn't have, like when your version didn't start with like the boat chase or like the speedboat thing?
There were speedboats in the beginning.
Okay.
Did I watch the director's cut?
That's the extended cut then.
Oh, okay. I hate
because, well, yeah, because like so the thing with there's I
watched the 2 hour and 16-minute version of it.
Yeah, that's the extended cut.
Okay, I watched that.
There's a lot of like disagreement among the Miami Vice fans about which cut is better, and I think it's like one of those things where I actually think there's pluses and minuses of both, and I almost wish Michael Mann would go back and pull Ridley Scott and do one more final cut because the person who like is kind of sacrificed the most in the theatrical cut is Naomi Harris. The entire sequence where like the bad guy sends flowers to her and then they like meet up after that, and they're talking about how she's like worried about it, but she's saying, or like, and Tubbs is really worried, and she's saying, well, it is what it is. He sent me flowers. He knows about me, but like he probably still doesn't know. You know, even if he went through your one covers, I still built you so many other covers. It should be fine. And that great sequence, like just that great like silent scene where she's gotten the flowers, and you see her pull the gun out in her home and like, you know, just kind of protecting herself. That's not in the theatrical cut.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, that's like all gone. But I will say the theatrical cut has a way cooler start. Because, and this is like, if you ever, you'll see a lot of Miami Vice fans just like lose their minds about how the theatrical cut starts. Because, so the version you watched for this time, it starts with like showing Crockett and Tubbs undercover as go fast boat race, like a race team, right? And they're in this boat race. And then we see that the reason they're doing that is this is all part of an undercover operation to go after this guy named Neptune, who's like a pimp basically. And they are trying to get him at the boat race, but it doesn't kind of work out. And they go, that's okay. We'll go to the club later and get him. The theatrical, and this is all happening over opening credits. The theatrical cut shows you the Universal logo, and then hard cut to the club, Numb Encore playing, and just shows Crockett, Tubbs, and Emma Harris standing there in the club watching Neptune. No like introduction, no dialogue or anything. And I think that's amazing. I love that. Cool. So it's like, I wish that beginning could be maintained, but put that Naomi Harris stuff back in the middle.
Michael Mann, he knows how to film a great nightclub scene. Hey.
Oh yeah.
Like the scene in Collateral, this one, his music choices again, and it makes sense too now that I know the TV show connection, because Miami Vice was known for their music so much. And I said this before, but again, no wonder Michael Mann knows how to pick a song. You just said Encore plays in this movie. Hell, the Public Enemy's trailer had that awesome song. I can't remember what it was, but go watch the Public Enemy's trailer, and that song was excellent. So the guy knows how to shoot a club. Hold on. He knows how to film a nightclub and play music. The guy, you know what? This Michael Mann guy, He's going places. Yeah. What else did I want to talk about? Oh, yeah. The final shootout of this film. Michael Mann just knows how to do these things better than like anybody else.
Yeah.
What's up with that?
That's what I mean. Like so I'm glad to hear that he's kind of coming around a little bit, because again, we don't know what his original ending was meant to be. But like, I think the finale we get in this is like, totally like, yeah, it's like, to me, I'm totally on board. And it's like, you give me Michael Mann, and you give Michael Mann having two groups of people fire machine guns at each other in his place. I'm in, man. Like the heat bank sequence and this final shootout, just the way he uses sound, and oh my god, the realism of like the way like people get torn apart by guns. It's an earlier part, but that's the very beginning when the white supremacists shoot the undercover cop in his car, and you just see the guy's arm torn off. And
that's
just
crazy.
like oh my god, it's crazy. And then like, yeah, that shootout at the end is awesome. So I don't, like I said, I
that
don't
guy
know
gets Jackson
was,
Pollocked. That was awesome.
yeah, it's fantastic. Michael Mann's shootouts are the best.
And then what's so cool is that happens, and then I mean, spoilers for Miami Vice at this point. Definitely check it out if you haven't. But the relationship between Sonny and Isabella is now revealed, like, to her that he's a cop.
Yeah, so, she hasn't known, obviously.
And he's fallen for her, like, obviously, so he, like, rushes her away from the scene and puts her in a hideout that they use for all their cop stuff. And then she's mad at him, obviously. And then he sets up a way to get her safe and lay low, I guess, away from the crazy bad drug lord. Which, sidebar, that limo scene with the big boss man was so fucking cool.
When you work for me, you must do exactly what you say you will do. In this business with me, I do not buy a service. I buy a result. If you say you will do a thing, you must do exactly that thing. Then you will prosper beyond your dreams and live in Miami millionaire style. You will contact and work through Jose Hierro on logistics, communication, security. To do with money and terms, you will work through my Isabella. I look forward to our doing more work together. Whether we do or do not, it is unlikely that we will meet again. I extend my best wishes to your families. Thank you for making this trip to see me.
So intimidating, where they sit in the limo, talk to him. Oh, actually, sorry. He talks to them, and he's just simple, direct. It was scary shit. Like when he like tells them, "You're gonna work for me. This is what you're gonna do. If you don't, well, we'll kill you."
Yeah, well, and another thing I love about the movie, and again, this is the kind of thing where I can see this like upsetting someone who wants this to be a much more traditional movie. So again, this is the kind of thing where you're either in it or you're out. But that villain, Montoya, is not caught at the end of the movie.
No,
right? We see a SWAT, like he, as he said, he has to put Isabel on a boat and send her off. He says like, "Don't worry, you'll be safe where you're going because he won't look for you there." But like, is he right? We don't know. Like, but then we even see like a SWAT team sent to Montoya's house, and he's gone. He's cleared out, and the movie never resolves that. And you could say like, well, what the hell, man? He was the main bad guy. How come the movie doesn't resolve that? And I think Michael Mann's answer would just be like, that's not the point. That's not what this movie's about. This movie was just showing this like little patch of time in their lives, and it goes on, right? You don't always get the guy you were after. In fact, the movie never goes back to Neptune. The pimp that they were trying to get at the beginning of the movie that we see like brutalize one of his women, and they're like upset that they have to like, call that case off. We never go back to it. So no. All right, I guess it's something they'll get back to maybe in the future.
And that's what I was kind of getting to with Sonny dropping Isabella off, and then he goes back to the hospital to check on Tubbs and Naomi Harris's character. He's standing outside the hospital getting his shit together before he struts into the hospital, and then it just cuts to black and it ends. Yeah. And I found the ending to this movie so good. So somber, yet hopeful, because Naomi Harris is probably going to be okay, so you feel good about that. And the music that they're playing is great, and it's just so classy. It just feels like such a classy moment. And the movie just starts and ends. And you just said, like a moment in time, right? And there lies my David Lynch connection. So years ago, you got me into more David Lynch films. And I had learned one of David Lynch's mantras in filmmaking was just his movies are all about, or just movies in general, should be about moments in time for these characters. It doesn't necessarily have to be the beginning or the end. It's just at some point in time you're watching a story. And I felt like I was watching that with Miami Vice, where that I was just watching these two detectives get pulled off a case to do another case. The case is sort of up in the air. They kind of know, they kind of solved it, but it's definitely not resolved yet.
No.
But on a character level and on a vibes level, as lame as that sounds, yeah, it works.
Yeah. No, it rules. And it's like, just that and again, it's like a level of confidence. You know, 9 out of 10 directors would feel they have to show Crockett go inside that hospital and then cut to like almost like the Return of the King ending, right? Like he comes in and he's like, and they all start jumping up and down in the bed, and him and Tubbs hugging Trudy as she wakes up, and it's just like, no, okay, we know that he's at the hospital, and that's enough. He's
Jamie
there.
Foxx finally gets on a boat and sails off into the sunset.
Why do I need to see like Crockett reunite with Tubbs and Trudy? It's enough for me to know he went there. He's there for them. Okay, got it. He went to the hospital. That's where he knew he needed to be. Cool. Yep, that's hard cut. Totally. Me. I know we talked about it before, and it's something I say in a lot of my Letterboxd reviews. One of my favorite things is abrupt movie endings. Yeah, I just love when a movie suddenly stops. Hong Kong movies do that a lot, and I love it. I wish more American movies would pick up on it. But I love, I can give you some like great examples off the top of my head. Death Proof has a great like abrupt ending. The Fly, like right, sometimes you kill the monster, the movie's done. The Fly, American Werewolf in London, it's over. Let's get out of here. Hit those end credits. And Miami Vice knows that very well as well.
I don't know.
I have one quick because I'm guessing you saw this. Do you have any? I think Barry Shabaka Henley is great in this as Castillo, their superior, Lieutenant Castillo. But did you see that that's the one like concession the TV show that Mann tried to make? Edward James Olmos played that character in the show, and he asked him to come back and play that part again in the movie. And I think he couldn't because of Battlestar Galactica, actually.
That makes sense.
Man, Like I said, Barry Spock Henley's great, but man, it would be awesome if Edward James Olmos just came back. It's like almost like a Judi Dench as M, like like,
Totally.
Yeah, I've recast the other two, but it's fucking Edward James Olmos, so let's go.
It's allowed. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean that's Miami Vice in my opinion. I think this movie just rocks. I loved it. I really loved it. A huge surprise for me. I heard so many negative things all these years. So
well, that's the thing is like as I think I kind of alluded to when we were talking about it. Like I didn't know how you were going to feel about this. Like I knew how I felt about it, but like it's a. And we should say like we mentioned this earlier, but it has kind of come around. It's a big cult favorite now, and in particular, like I'll just read right from Wikipedia for a moment. Excuse me, but it says in 2016, critic Stephen Hayden wrote that Miami Vice has developed a burgeoning reputation as a cult favorite, especially among younger critics and filmmakers who consider it a touchstone in their love of movies. Hayden wrote that the focus on gloomy atmosphere and visual sensation over plot and dialogue made the film a visual meditation on failure and futility that was one of the most expensive art films ever made. So okay, that's where I pulled that quote from. But yeah, the fact that like it has kind of come back around, people have rediscovered it and now appreciate it for what it is. And I especially just wanted to mention, because it's important to me, that Harmony Korine has said, and it's not surprising at all if you've seen it, that this movie was a huge influence on Spring Breakers, his 2012 film.
Right.
And I bring that up because Spring Breakers is still, honestly, one of my favorite movies of the 2000s. So at the end of the day, if Miami Vice like led to that movie, that alone makes me love this movie because it got me Spring Breakers as well. So good on it.
Spring Breakers and Public Enemies. You really like James Franco and Johnny Depp. I see what's going on here.
There's a definite Johnny Depp fan in this discussion. I don't know if it's you're pointing the finger in the right direction here, but whatever.
So we obviously love this movie, and we have some affinity for the TV show in some way, culturally or personally. In your case, oddly enough, this movie's so good that it's one of those moments where not having a sequel is actually fine with me.
Yeah, I think so too. And in fact, there's been other movies we've done where people could say we're maybe stretching our own concept or whatever. I don't know. There's like nothing really to suggest how interested Michael Mann was in making this into a franchise, right? Or like that was ever the aim of like, yeah, let's make a bunch of these. We included it because for and this goes back to like me joking around with you about the Fall Guy at the beginning.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any way that Universal was thinking like, if this hits, we won't be interested in follow-ups. It's Miami Vice, right? Like Universal had to be thinking, cool, if this works, you'll do some more, right? And I think Michael Mann probably could have been talked into it. As I said, as we see with Heat 2, a lot of these directors, as they are artists, but they also will do the movies they can get the funding to make. So if the money is there, they will make it. That said, I'm with you in that I kind of love that this is just like this weird singular thing. Especially, it's almost like, this is happening right now with Furiosa, right? A movie that I just saw and quite enjoyed, and it bombed horribly this weekend. And it always is like a bummer to me. I get it to a certain degree. Like what I was about to say is it's a bummer to me when that's like 80% of the discussion about the movie online now, right? Yeah. Is about how it bombed. And I get it because I'll see some people say, well, who cares if a movie bombed? And obviously that's wrong because there is an element that says, well, when a movie bombs, that means he can't do any more, right? But I also agree that don't let it dominate the discussion because so many movies that we love today were bombs, right? Like John Carpenter's The Thing. People hated that movie when it came out. It wasn't just a financial bomb. Critics said it sucked back then, right? Blade Runner. People thought it was terrible. And like a lot of movies take time to come around. So I think it's actually kind of awesome that Miami Vice is just one of those. That was like, it was so groundbreaking, so ahead of its time, as you said, that it just like, it was ahead of the audience. And they're like, what? And like people had to come back around to like what Michael Mann had in his head, and people are now discovering it and going, "Oh yeah, that rules," right? And it did like it actually influenced like so much more to come. So I'm glad that we didn't get like a Miami Vice 2 or 3 that started to dilute that. Oh, here's the new adventures of Crockett and Tubbs, and oh, Isabella's back, and like, yeah, no thanks, right?
I don't even think the world was ready for Colin Farrell. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like he is getting his due, especially in the recent years. He's like a major
well, this was kind of like the failure of this movie, right? I think was very big in like him stepping back and going, you know what? Hollywood's been trying to push me front and center as like this new megastar.
Yeah.
And like, I'm not interested in that. And I think what you see after this is Colin Farrell concentrating like, going like, I know I'm like one of the hottest guys in the world, but I don't care. I'm going to become an interesting character actor, and I want to work with interesting filmmakers. So I want to work with Yorgos Lanthimos, and and like just like go into these like weird roles, and like what, I want to put on a fat suit, and I want to be goofy. So I think like that's where, and I never really had that much of a problem with Colin Farrell, but like recent years Colin Farrell is way more interesting to me because of that.
Yeah, and then Jamie Foxx was like, I got to play Electro now.
Yeah. And Colin Farrell's like, I got to be an Artemis Fowl. So,
Artemis Fowl, the movie we've seen once and tried to see twice. Okay.
Summer Sweeps is saved, Chris.
Yeah,
at least temporarily. Like at
For
least
now.
it didn't like it wasn't we didn't this three in a row of the quality of Avengers and Mods. If we had another one of those, it really would have been. Especially for you, like coming back from this amazing trip where you got engaged and had such a good time, and you sit down and watch the Avengers or the Mod Squad. I don't know, man. I don't often feel bad about making you do this show, but maybe I would have felt a little bad on that.
Yeah, that would have been a huge bummer. So, no, this was excellent. This is a huge surprise. Soon we're coming up on our episode 100, by the way, listeners, which is crazy to think about. But we're still putting it together, what we want to do, just have like a fun conversation or whatnot. But we're going to talk about the movies that kind of surprised us, I think, and movies that we liked, movies we hated, stuff like that. And this one will be very near the top.
Yeah.
I loved it. Usually I will go out and buy a Blu-ray version, like probably used, of the stuff that I really found exciting, like Karate Kid. That was awesome. So I recently rebought The Fifth Element, by the way, thinking that I didn't own it.
It's happened to me on a few occasions.
Yeah, I forgot to tell you that. It happened
to me more
ago.
with books, actually, because I have a huge book
funny.
collection, but it's really hard for me to sometimes remember like some of those.
Yeah, it's funny because I have an app to track everything, and for whatever reason I didn't check, but it doesn't matter. It's all good.
You know what? I did just remember. I will throw out one small criticism. This particularly goes to the director's cut, because the theatrical cut puts this song in the end credits, but in the extended cut they put the "In the Air Tonight" over the beginning of like the action finale. Except it's like a terrible cover of it by this band called Nonpoint. And this is the one time where, we talked about the Edward James Olmos thing, but this is the one time where I wish Mike Mann had just fully caved and just said like, all right, let's just use the Phil Collins version. I know it's an 80s song. I know it's from the show, but good God, that Nonpoint version sucks. I really wish it was the original.
Okay. We have 2 more to go in Summer Sweeps.
Yeah.
So June 18th, we're looking at Get Smart from 2008.
Ooh,
and
with our
then,
franchise Viagra himself.
Ah, yeah.
Get your piss bottles ready.
Oh yeah, we have new information.
We have important new information to talk about. Yeah, remember we said I remember on the Mod Squad episode, I think you were like, "No, we're not going to talk much about The Rock." And then like 2 days later, that article came out. It's like, "Oh no, we have to."
Yeah. So tune into that. That'll be fun. And then July 2nd, capping off Summer Sweeps, Land of the Lost from 2009.
Yeah.
Follow along at F2F.
Despite what we just told you. Despite us coming up on Get Smart and Land of the Lost, follow along.
Yeah, please. Follow along at F2F Pod. That's at F2, the number 2 F Pod. That's on all the socials. So like us there, like us everywhere. Rate, review, whatever you do. Throw us a star rating. That'd be cool. On your podcast app, wherever you are listening. And just join the tribe, hit that subscribe. And I guess we'll talk Get Smart next time. Yeah.
Have you seen Spring Breakers?
I think I have, but I'm not sure. I'd have to check my Letterboxd. But I
feel like you would remember if you saw that movie. But it's because it's insane. But
yeah, it may be one of those movies I don't want to say I half watched, but it may be on the level. Let's check.
Yeah, because that's definitely like it's like the narrative is not super important. It's just like it's like vibes, like times 100.
If I have seen it, it's due for a revisit. But let's see. I did watch it. I gave it 1.5 stars. This is what I said. I said, I maybe would have been more into this trashy, exploitative satire, ? If at least one fucking character was likable or that the movie had an ounce of plot. It's funny.
Yeah.
Legit purely felt like an excuse for Corinne to hang out and film a ton of naked extras and ex-Disney Child stars. It's so overly gratuitous that it becomes boring. One like.
I agree with like everything in that review. You could take that review and leave it all the same and then just change boring to amazing, and it's like my review.
That's great. That's great.